Hello, everyone. With me today is Dr. Bobby Newman and Bobby Rogers. They have partnered to shed light on how COVID has affected our special needs population. Dr. Bobby Newman is a world-renowned psychologist and behavior analyst and author of many publications, books such as Move with a Purpose and When Everybody Cares. Bobby Rogers is a parent advocate, nonprofit founder, and director of Proud Moments Therapy in Syracuse, New York. Today, they will be interviewing Judith and Amy Ursitti. Judith is a parent of a child with autism and the current director of state government affairs at Autism Speaks. Amy has a sibling with autism and is a student at Emory University. Bobby Rogers, why don't you begin?
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Judith and Amy, for being here. I'm so excited to have you with us. For those of you that are listening, these two are warriors in this field of advocating for special needs families. If you have a chance to go to our website, specialneedscovid.com, you can read their narratives. They're absolutely beautiful. Beautiful pieces of work. And I highly recommend you doing that because I was just so better for having taken the time to read them. So thank you both for doing that, for submitting those. Amy, you're a sibling with a powerful and beautiful message. So thank you for being here today and sharing that. I think we need more people like yourself that are really talking about what this means from the sibling perspective. I've said many times that we underestimate, what our siblings are dealing with. They're dealing with not only what it feels like to be them in the space of this journey, but also they're carrying, worrying for their sibling and their parents. And so I'm very grateful to have you here today. And Judith, I've been a big fan of you, I think, since I met you. I just find you to be lovely in being able to marry compassion for families with advocacy. And you have a tremendous platform and you use it to just always try and do better for the world. So I want to kick us off just with a general introduction where you both can introduce yourselves and your take on this field.
Yeah, who's going first?
I think you
Me?
should. A for Amy.
Okay, yeah, there you go. We'll go in alphabetical order. Hi, so I'm Amy Ursitti, and as Bobby just said, I am a sibling of somebody with autism. My brother Jack, he's 17, and he honestly is my best friend. I love him. I've spent lots of time with him because of COVID-19. I'm a junior at Emory now, and so not even last semester, 2 semesters ago, we went back to my dorm and packed up all my stuff and I moved back home because all of my classes were remote. And one of the blessings of this whole time has been really getting to spend day in, day out with my brother, which I really haven't done in a long time because in high school I was out and about at theater rehearsal or cross country practice or whatever, but we really got to spend all this time just being together, not necessarily going out, doing anything, just being at home, just with one another. So that has been amazing since we've never really gotten to do that before. So that's a little bit about more recently, but just my brother in general. He has severe autism. So he uses his iPad to communicate. He talks about airplanes a lot. Especially in the time of pandemic, he is ready to go, get out of the house. But it's just so interesting to see him and how he connects. I'm just saying airplane, suitcase, backpack, all of that. I love talking to him because he's so genuine about everything. And I really have nobody else like that in my life. He just is himself. He talks about what he wants to talk about, but then he's also there for you all at the same time when you need him. So I love him a lot, and I am so fortunate to be able to be here today to talk a little bit about him and just our relationship.
I can't follow that. I have a total lump in my throat watching my daughter. She is a beautiful human being, and I will say it's not something that's been taught. It is her spirit. It is who she is. The day she met Jack, when he was born, and within the following, well, it was the day he was born, actually. We told her he was going to have to stay in the hospital for a few days. And she cried and she said, we can't leave him here. He's special. And it was kind of prophetic, like he is special.
Little did we know.
But she's so special too, just having that empathy and understanding of him from the very beginning. And for me, being able to bear witness to that has been just absolutely the joy of my life. And autism itself has been hard. You know, there have been dark, very hard times. And Amy has borne witness to those herself. But I just find it so powerful that we can sit here and talk to you, and the undercurrent, the message is all love. It's love. It's pure, it's love. So I'm feeling very sappy today, but it's just a beautiful opportunity to sit here by this young woman. She's incredible. I will just say quickly that I'm Judith. I am mom to Jack and Amy. As we mentioned before, Jack has autism. He's got a severe intellectual disability. I always say he has really big autism. Like it's, you always know when Jack is present. He's very loud and he's very joyful, and sometimes he's aggressive and angry and frustrated. He has challenging behaviors. He is an athlete, he's a runner. So he is a multifaceted person who has changed the person I am so much. And he has led me into advocacy. And I've been so honored over the past 12 years to work in the advocacy department at Autism Speaks, mainly working state to state to pass autism insurance reform legislation to end that discrimination by health plans against people with autism who need access to evidence-based care. And that has been a labor of love. We definitely have work that remains in the private plans, also in Medicaid, and that is something I intend to continue working on. So more to be done, but it's been just an incredible journey. And then you take all of that and you throw in a pandemic, you know, it's just, okay, what else is going to happen? I literally was testifying on a bill in Connecticut, in Hartford. And then the next day we were supposed to have a press conference there, and the Capitol just shut down and everything shut down. So we had to pivot and kind of start working on things remotely and trying to support our community during such a challenging time. So I'm doing that in my work. And then also trying to help my son whose services disappeared overnight. So living that experience has definitely been hard sometimes and joy-filled sometimes. So I'm very happy to be with you guys today. And glad we're almost turning the corner with the vaccine. So.
I actually got mine this past Saturday.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's starting. We're turning that corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's hope. I don't even know where to begin in many respects. The truth is, I mean, you know that I've fanboyed on you and your family for quite a while. Every opportunity that I have to see you speak, or sometimes forgive me when I've asked you to speak when you weren't even scheduled to at gatherings. I've watched your family on social media, and even now as I'm looking in your background now, I see the medals and the other things associated with running and marathoning. I know we've done races together, and somewhere on my walls here are some of my marathon photos from marathons we were actually in together.
Yes.
So we have these various connections, but one of the things that has always stuck with me, and I know that I've used this line when introducing you to speak, is people talk about what organizations do, what Autism Speaks does. And I've always found that kind of misleading. It's not what Autism Speaks does, it's what the people who are making up Autism Speaks do. That they're real people with real families, and there are real sacrifices. We in New York, for example, where I am, have benefited for, I couldn't begin to imagine how many hours you must have spent, days, weeks, months, I couldn't even begin to measure the time, working on our insurance legislation. And that was time that your family probably missed you. I would say definitely missed you.
Yes.
So I think I want to start there in terms of just before and after pandemic. Obviously, you lived out of a suitcase a lot, and now there's a little bit of difference. And Jack was in program, Jack was out of program. Forgive me, I'm chucking a lot at you, but can you give us a little bit of an overview of how your own activities and your own family sort of pre and post?
You're right. So before, just using New York as an example, I will say New York is a state that makes everything so darn hard. Like, it's just very difficult to get anything done in New York. So getting private health insurance passed, we experienced a veto. We had to start all over. Medicaid has been a long slog, and we are going to get there with coverage for Medicaid. So yes, I mean, I have spent a lot of time in Albany, and that is while Amy was growing up and while Jack was growing up. And my husband has a very demanding job. We did have another family member, my niece, who lived with us, Erin, who really helped, fill in those gaps of driving Jack to school or when I was traveling. But I would travel almost every week, and I tried very hard. I kind of had a rule where I could not be gone more than 2 nights in a row. And if I could make it one night, I would make it one night where I had an early flight and then get back super late, but I wanted to be here when they were getting up in the morning. But I think, there was a sacrifice made by my family for sure. I don't know. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my mom and I clearly were very close. So like our relationship is so important to me. And like there were so many times growing up where I was like, oh, like something happened at school, something happened just like in my personal life. And I was like, I want to tell my mom about this. But then she wasn't home.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, like I'll wait a couple nights and then I'll tell her. Or if it was really important, I would just text her.
Mm-hmm.
But I did miss having her around.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up with her going on trips, pretty much year round. She was really busy in and out of the house. But I knew the work that she was doing was so important. Like I can see firsthand the services that Jack gets, and just knowing that not everybody has access to those services and that my mom is working to make that happen, like that makes it all worth it. And again, like I always knew she would come home after a couple of days. And I think that just made us all closer too, because we really all did have to work together, just in planning, like who's driving Jack here, like who is like making dinner, all of that. So that was an interesting experience growing up, but
Yeah. And
totally worth it.
Well, I mean, I think the honest answer too is it's not ideal. And I also think for us, and being super candid, is, it's double autism because we're living autism in our home experience. And there were some periods that were very dark, and difficult. So we're living those. And then I'm also doing important work around it, which means that's all I talk about all the time too. So I think I was pretty annoying sometimes too.
Yeah, I remember like when she first started at Autism Speaks, I was 8. I was in 3rd grade. And like I went through like a period there where I was like, why do we talk about autism all the time? Like, oh my God, let's talk about something else. Like, can we talk about Hannah Montana instead? Like, are you kidding? But that passed as I got older. And I think like my mom's passion for what she does is contagious. Like it's honestly amazing. I cannot imagine having somebody more inspirational as my mom. Like she really just ropes all of us into it. And even if we're like going through a particularly tough time, just in our family in general, like just how much she cares, I think is amazing. It makes for some interesting dinner conversations.
Annoying, inspiring, simultaneously.
All of the above.
I did have an amazing moment last year when I was at the Georgia State Capitol and we were having Autism Awareness Day there. And Amy is a student at Emory University, and which is about 5 miles from the Georgia Capitol. Is that right? Like 5 miles?
Yeah.
So she came for Autism Awareness Day, which was awesome. And on that same day, back in Boston, Massachusetts, Jack was at the State House in Massachusetts, visiting state legislators with a group from his school, and they were inviting people to Autism Awareness Day, and they would go into the offices with their iPads, and he would take his iPad and say, please come, which is so cool. So on that day, both my children were advocating. Not that they had to turn into advocates, people are individuals, but I gotta say, it warmed my heart and gives me hope that yes, things were super annoying sometimes, but also it's in their DNA too, like they're advocating too. So it's so rewarding to see.
Well, you raised him right, if I could put it that way. And I have to say, I mean, you seem to have struck the ability, but again, my looking from the outside, to strike a balance. I remember at times I've actually joked with my wife, looking at some of the social media and looking at your schedule and knowing where you were and then seeing you back at home. I was like, there has to be a clone. She's identical twins. She's something, because there's no way that one person can get all this done, but you have. And I would be remiss if I didn't also comment that as I'm listening to you talk, I could almost see Bobby and her daughter Lily in your places. Because the type of relationship that you have and the activities that you're describing, and just how the family has, again, I'm thinking of words like advanced, functioned. I mean, just how you all live your lives and what you stand for, just really struck me. Again, I'm thinking of even the stuff that comes into my mind. Again, we all share our passion for running and racing, and a 5K that Feet of Central New York did. And I got to be honest, I don't know if Lily ever heard this story, but I was scheduled to do a 5K down here for a charity that I work with. But Feet was having their day, and Lily called me and said, "You're going to come and run with me, right?" I answered that, yeah, of course I am. Where else would I be? So I came up and we did that one together, and just watching her and her friends who came to support, and how everybody has been kind of educated, and the advocacy and bringing everybody together and trying to increase some level of understanding, and just the warmth and the love that radiates from everybody. I don't want to choke up here. In our first lecture, I joked that I was channeling my inner Jose Martinez Diaz, because I actually choked up a couple of times. And doing it again. This isn't my series. It's just been incredible and inspirational to watch. And now, again, kind of returning back to our topic here, I know we're going to focus a bit on some of the effects of COVID. You mentioned that total shutdown and now how everything shifted. And I would be interested in hearing a little bit about how Jack's services were affected and how that affected the family, and a little bit of progression there, if at all possible.
Absolutely. So Jack attends a program outside of Boston called Neshoba Learning Group, and he's attended that program. It's a school for kids with severe autism and young adults, and it's a year-round program. It's really for kids that have behavioral challenges. It's an intensive program. And so for that to just shut down, when it first shut down, I think like many parents, we thought, oh, this is going to be a long week or two. Like we had no idea that he was going to be just cut off from that in-person instruction. And with Jack too, Amy might want to comment on this a little. He's very much into physical touch. So doing things remotely, that's been challenging, although he's improved. But I know when she went away to college, like even just trying to FaceTime, and when I travel too, trying to FaceTime with him, it's not anything he ever wanted to do. No. When you're home engaging with him, usually you're squeezing his arms or his hands or something.
To, like squish his hand or like tickle him or something.
Yeah, there's usually something physical involved, and we never really, I don't think we realized it that much until
you can't. Until you're just like looking through a screen and he's just like, bye. after like 2 seconds.
But I will say that his team at Neshoba, they operate, it's a positive evidence-based program, very individualized in using the principles of applied behavior analysis. They worked with him. We started off doing Zoom sessions that were like 5 minutes, and just over time, they continued trying and working with him. And so now he's up to like, he'll do maybe like how long is this session?
Last time I did it with him, he was on for an hour.
Right. So he'll say
huge improvement.
Mm-hmm. And so we might try that like twice a day with him. Like we could get 45 minutes to an hour in where he is engaging with his staff, doing programming, trying to just maintain. So that's been one blessing, is that he's learned to engage in a limited way via Zoom. It's not fun. And I will say that's a step in the right direction, but I also just see kind of a regression too, like all the things he could have been doing this last year. He's 17, especially with his activities of daily living, his vocational work that he's doing. That's been lost. He has missed that. So we've got to figure out, how to help him when things do get back to normal. He turned into a situation where he kind of was sleeping a lot too, just because there's so many hours in the day and we couldn't go anywhere. So you could almost see him being kind of depressed, although he couldn't verbalize that. So it's been hard. He is very much on a routine where, we go to Outback Steakhouse every Saturday night, and so those expectations all had to be changed. But he has overall stuck with it. I don't know if you want to add more, Amy. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we also have been building schedules for him, like every single day with like the few things that we are able to do. And I think that has helped him a lot. And he'll like watch you make the schedule too, and like make sure that you're putting the right things on there. But it'll say like, eat breakfast, like go on the treadmill, take a shower, empty the dishwasher, eat lunch, all of that. So he kind of knows what to expect throughout the day. And I think that makes a huge difference for days where he's just going to be at home.
And the other thing we've done that we started, Amy had to come home from college. They went remote. And so Amy and Jack and I would go out for runs together too.
Oh yeah.
Just to get out of the house.
Nice.
So we try to keep exercise and
get outside for a little bit. It helps a lot. Helps him.
Yeah, and it's super fun to do it together. Although for Amy, I think the pace is a little slow. But
All right. That happens.
So that was, really cool just to be able to get to run together.
Yeah.
I would like
to do that often.
I would like to throw it back to Bobby for a moment, and forgive me, this is all spontaneous and unrehearsed. I did notice on her social media page a wonderful photo of her son, Matt, helping Joey to shave. And it just was a heartwarming picture. And again, I hope I'm not embarrassing Matt, but just watching that, and what it highlighted for me is sort of two counterbalanced points. Sort of one, there's things that we're getting to do that we might not be able to do otherwise, but then there's also the having to step up because the other programming may not be in place because we're now virtual and away. So I'm going to shut up and throw it back to Bobby and see, again, since you're all living this, that balance between what's been really nice to be able to get to do and what you've kind of had to do because of other services not being available.
So Matthew is more successful at some of those things with his brother than I am. So when I can lean on him for that, I do. He doesn't jump in every week, and that's more on me than him. I think he would. But like you said, there's a balance. And for me, I want it to be because they're brothers. I don't want it to be because this is an additional task. But, and Judith, you can speak to this too. As much as I say that, I think Matthew would be totally fine if I said, can you take this over each week? And when I'm listening to Amy speak, you just hear that. And to mirror what you said, Judith, it's a balance. And you don't have to teach with words our children to grow up and understand these things. They live it. And so there's just such a beauty that sometimes our siblings end up demonstrating to the world in general, which I think was that picture. Why it touched me watching the two of them is the beauty of growing up as a sibling and the actual real beautiful benefits of that. But there is certainly a balance with that. I'm sure you both, Amy and Judith, have felt that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it first?
No, I'll let you.
I think I agree. There have been moments, Bobby, where I have witnessed the two of my children doing something like that I never would have anticipated would be something in our lives that just gets a lump in your throat. You have to catch your breath because it's just so beautiful. And I actually was thinking today about, this is a little different. It might be a little gross, but just kind of is an example of the life that our siblings of people with severe autism lead. So I remember one night, I was thinking about this earlier. I was trying to remember how old Jack was. I think he was like 8 or 9. And so toileting was a hard slog for us. And he finally kind of got it around the age of 13. So, we're excited. Like, it's life-changing when you finally get toilet training done. But I remember one night being in bed, and I had already gone to bed. The kids were upstairs, and I heard Amy come downstairs, and so Jack was like 8, she's like 11. And she had a Target bag in her hand, a plastic Target bag. And that's what we used to tie the dirty diapers up with. And so he had a dirty diaper. She changed the diaper and just came downstairs, and it's like, Mom, where do I put this? And that's just like, it's one of those tasks, first of all, that you have to be careful to talk about because of dignity issues and all those things. But then it also exemplifies the life a sibling, like our kids, the life they lead, and the fact that she just took that on herself and did it, super gross for a tween, but she cared about Jack, she cared about me. And so she just decided to do it. And I will never forget seeing her standing in the hallway with that bag in her hand. Just like, I was so touched, like, oh, thank you, for doing that. So it's just, some of the moments are Hallmark photograph moments. Some of them are moments that no one can ever know about, but that carves their personalities in really incredible ways. So for Jack and for Amy, for both of them. So I don't know if you have more to add to that.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, in all kinds of conversations, I know my mom will always say, like, oh, like, I don't want you to worry about this. Like, I don't want you to be stressed about like taking care of Jack or anything. Like, definitely before the pandemic started and everything, when I was away at college, I would always be like, how is he doing? Like, I want to know, because it's strange being like removed from that environment and not knowing the day in, day out, like, did he have an aggression? Did he have an amazing day? Like, I just want to know because he's my brother. But she always says, like, don't worry about it. But like, I always say to her, I'm like, I'm going to worry about it because like, if I don't know that Jack's okay, then I'm not going to be okay. And I think that's always going to carry through because I mean, we're siblings. Like my mom was talking about, from the day that I met him, like one of my earliest memories is picking out the sweater I was going to wear to go to the hospital to go see him when he was still there after like a few days. So I just like, it's just a feeling, it's just natural. And like we've talked about too, it's not something that's really been like taught, like, oh, you have to do this. It's just internal. Like, I care about my brother. And like people will talk about too, just kind of the burden of autism too. I think when people talk to siblings, and like a lot of the time, people will talk to me as if like, oh, like this is such a huge burden on you. But at the same time, I feel like autism is the burden on Jack, and anything that I can do to help that burden or to make that burden easier for him to carry is something that I want to do. So that's what I'll add to what you said, but I think you covered a lot of it too.
I think she covered it. I think it's amazing that she sees him as a human being. You know, she sees him as a person.
Yeah. And adding on to that too, like Jack is great, but he can be mean. Like he has all the traits. So I think that's important to talk about too. Like he has a personality. Not everybody with autism is just the same. He has good days, he has bad days. He loves to run, he loves music. What's something he hates?
We went through a period where he hated the sound of your voice.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
And he would like
that was a rough one.
Yeah.
That's Jack, though, luckily, as far as I know, unless he's just not telling me.
Yeah, no.
Do I remember correctly that his musical taste runs to Maroon 5?
Oh yeah, Rihanna.
He has very eclectic taste. Like the other day, I walked in when he was listening to music, and this was weird because my family was having a conversation about Les Mis. It's like a musical that all of us love. And I walked into the bedroom where Jack was listening to music, and he was listening to a song from Les Mis.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So
yeah,
he listens to everything.
Yeah.
You all know my son is in musical theater, so I know more about musical theater than I ever thought I would in my life. I've seen more shows than I could have possibly imagined multiple times. I always joke about it, there's something like Carrie, because when you've got a story about a teenager who's bullied into psychosis and kills everybody, let's make a musical out of that. Surprisingly good. They really did a wonderful job with Carrie. I was really impressed. But I have to go back here, and Amy, just beautiful. Obviously, the public speaking genes and the inspiration genes are strong. And I do hope that you will continue as your life goes on, whether you write books or whether you continue to make presentations like this. Again, just the way you express this is so beautiful and eloquent and moving. I really do have to thank you. It's really wonderful. But as our time goes by here, I do want to throw things back into what's been necessary now as other supports have kind of fallen away and it's all now come down more on you. How has that kind of progressed in terms of, again, some of the other support services that were there that kind of either gradually or abruptly fell away during the pandemic?
Mm-hmm. So I think definitely, as Amy mentioned before, the schedule has been extremely necessary just to help Jack stay balanced throughout the day. And I put that on him, but I also think it helps us because then we as a family, we do have to divide up who is with Jack. He requires 24/7 support. You can't just let him hang out in his room all day alone, like you have to keep him safe, you have to keep him fed, you have to keep him from hurting himself. So we've had to really work within our family unit, to, as Amy mentioned, like she does Zoom sessions with him, my husband does, I do. We have to coordinate, who's going to make sure Jack is eating or not eating everything in the cabinet. We've coordinated the running, coordinated the showering. I would say probably the thing that suffered the most is just the programming to help him grow, like with vocational and things like that. We have not done anything to really expand that because I feel like it's been so hard just to do the basic things. So what do you think, babe?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say too, there's been a big shift kind of in his team. So like my mom mentioned earlier that my cousin Erin used to live with us and she would do a lot of stuff with Jack, like taking him on little outings to Starbucks and things like that. And she would like work with him on laundry a little bit too sometimes, just stuff like that. But she moved away back in June. So she left. And then there was also a bunch of turnover just with his teachers too. But then he's had some really good supports who like have been there for a long time. So some of his former teachers, Shannon and Kristen, and then Liz too, who currently is working with him at school. She would like come over and do some of that stuff with him. Like they would do laundry, and just like a way to keep him busy too. And you can speak to this more than I can probably. But like Jack will like go over to Shannon's house and like hang out with her kids and stuff like that. So while Jack is kind of missing out on the more vocational aspect of his education, he also has kind of built this community. Like it's very close knit, which I think has been really helpful. So kind of like replacing one thing that's kind of been lost with something else. There's also been a lot of growth just in that way too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that, but we did create our bubble, from the beginning, and the bubble included the children of 2 of Jack's team members. So that way he could interact with other people. And he doesn't get a lot of time with typical peers. And so that definitely has been an unexpected blessing, where he has gone to their homes, hung out with their kids. They all go running together. One of his therapists, Kristen, just has little girls, like 3 little girls, and they all like to boss Jack around, So those are things that never would have happened had it not been for the disruption of the pandemic. But I think for me, my assessment of it is we've kept our head above water, but that's it. I'm not particularly proud. I mean, we have not been superheroes at all. We have enjoyed a lot of time together, but there have been days where I've looked up, I've been super busy with some work assignment. Amy might be, taking a test, and Jack is wandering around the house. Like, I don't even know where he is, things are out of control, and you're like, oh gosh. So, we've not been some COVID superstars at all, but we have really tried to be careful, limiting exposure. Early on, my husband really did a great job, and this wouldn't necessarily apply to every person who worked with Jack, but we never talked about the mask. We didn't talk about needing a mask. But when we got to a point where Jack could go to the grocery store, which is an outing he loves, when my husband got out of the car with him, he was about to bound in, and he's like, I'm putting on this mask, you're putting on this mask, and you have to wear it if we're going in. And that was it, because Jack really, really wanted to go in. So he has been compliant with the mask from day one. Just, I feel like very much with his personality, the way my husband introduced it to him, and just like, we have to do this if you want to do that. It was crystal clear, and the store was right there. So it's like, okay. So that was a beautiful success.
Now he tells us to put on our masks.
Yes.
Before we like go in the grocery store or anything. So
yeah. So
it worked.
It's been ugly. He really needs a haircut right now. There have been days where you're like, did he get a shower? And then there have been days where we're like, wow, look at us. We did the schedule and we divided it up.
Yeah.
We had dinner on time, and we didn't have any aggressions or self-injurious behavior.
Yeah.
So that's real life, for us.
That's absolutely it, real life. And again, from our first interview that we had posted, I shared one of my, as I joked about it, probably not the most professional thing I've ever said, but probably unfortunately not the least unprofessional thing I've ever said, where when we first realized we were moving over to telehealth and we huddled up with all the BCBAs, I said, okay, anybody who works on caller ID right now, I'm kicking in the head. The idea was, everything has now changed. Priorities have changed. The ability to get along in everyday life for as long as this lasts is going to be the priority. And as I've, mused about this afterwards, in addition to my own professionalism, I was probably wrong, because some people do find working on caller ID very comforting, and it's old and it's familiar and it's structure and it's everything that we need to work on. But my own closing thought on this, and then I'm going to hand it back to Bobby, is applied behavior analysis itself And, the treatment that we provide is meant to increase the autonomy of the person that we're teaching, allowing them to cope with everyday environments and to make decisions for their own lives and to develop the skills that will allow them to advocate for themselves and to have choices. As I've gone on in some of my writings and speaking, if somebody doesn't have a skill, they don't have a choice. Once somebody teaches them the skill, now they have a choice. They can either do it or not do it, but if nobody ever teaches them the skill, they don't have any choice. So applied behavior analysis being so effective at teaching skills, in my opinion, it's great for increasing autonomy and teaching independence. And it sounds like that's really what's been necessary here, taking everyday life and making sure that we have the skills to hit everyday life, like masks being required places, and being able to socialize with new and different people because our old network is not so readily available anymore. So you say that you haven't been covert superheroes. I'm going to argue with you and say that you absolutely have been. So two things. One, I'm going to ask if you will please come back for another episode because I know we have a lot to do, a lot more that we could possibly be talking about. And I would like to throw it back to Bobby for just any other commentary that she has on what we've discussed. And thank you.
Just to wrap it up, I just want to tell you both that I think that you're both beautiful inside and out. It's just such a pleasure to know you both. And as a parent of a child with special needs, to know that people like you are out there advocating for people like me. There's so many questions. I could continue talking to you for so long. So I would like to also say, I hope we can have you back for a follow-up conversation, but I am definitely so very grateful to both of you for what you do, for being with us today, and just making the world a better place.
You too. It's been wonderful to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to share. And thanks for people who are taking time to listen, and hopefully they feel connected and know they're not alone in this journey too. We are going to get through this.
No, thank you very much. Personal note, I'm even more of a fanboy than I was to begin with. So thank you very much for being here, both of you. It really is appreciated. And I really think that people are going to draw a lot from this conversation. So again, thank you.
Thanks for highlighting siblings.
Yes, I was going to say that it's always an amazing opportunity to be able to talk about being a sibling. So thank you so much for doing that and for having us together. I think this has been really fun.
That annoying?
No.
Okay, good. No.
All right, then. Well, that seems to wrap up this week's COVID conversation. And as always, we thank Judith and Amy for being with us, and Dr. Newman and Bobby Rogers for their takes and insights. And we look forward to our next talk. And I hope everybody is doing well and staying safe, and looking at getting that vaccine. So that vaccine rollout's important for all of us. So keep an eye on that for everybody. I know they're going to be hitting group homes here in New York. So that's kind of a nice thing to hear right now. So just want to add in my little 2 cents that way. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.